Hi, fans of high-quality entertainment. This is a, bit of a different video talking about when musicians are interviewed. I've found, through watching interviews on YouTube, there are good interviewers and not so good interviewers. And so I'm going to talk about a few of my favorites and least favorite. And also just let you know, on my other channel, Canadian Studmuffin, I just posted about Ed Bassmaster. He's a very popular YouTube comedian. And Molly and I are meeting him next Tuesday in London, Ontario. He's going to be performing, his comedy show there. So please check out that video. And I've also today, Phil Aston on Now Spinny Magazine. He's going to be posting our Electric Light Orchestra rankings. So please make sure you check that video out. And I'll be posting it in my community when Phil posts the video. Now, in my YouTube career of almost 20 years, 20 years, I've interviewed, a few different YouTube channels like Phil Aston from Now Spinny Magazine, Taste Like Music, and, I can't remember them all now, but, I've interviewed a few, Pop Goes the 60s, and what I've found is over time, I've kind of improved interviewing people. And so when I recently, in the last couple of years, 2-3 years, I've interviewed real, kind of rock stars, I guess you would say. Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad. I've interviewed him twice. And Brian Ray, Paul McCartney's, he's been in Paul McCartney's band for a long, long time. And it was great to interview him. And I think, for my interview skills, even though I'm far from a professional, what I try to do is when you interview these people or anybody, even another YouTube channel, first of all, you listen and you don't make it about yourself. You make it about them, and if they're trying to promote something, you make sure, you talk about that. And, like I said, I'm an amateur. I've made mistakes and everything, and been kind of nervous interviewing certain people. Like, at the start of interviewing Brian Ray, I was a little bit nervous, but I settled down pretty quickly. And I think Brian, really did enjoy the interview because I didn't make it all about Paul McCartney. I talked about him and his life. And then, near the end of the interview, I got in a couple of Paul McCartney questions and even one on Sparks. And with Mark Farner, we talked about his past with Grand Funk Railroad, and it's just interesting to hear, their stories and their answers. You ask them a question, but, you really want to know the answer to it, right? So, like I said, on, YouTube and everywhere, all these TV talk shows, there's good and bad interviewers. And I think Rick Beato, from the few interviews I've seen of him, talking to musicians, he is an excellent interviewer. If you have any interest in Rick Wakeman or, the band Yes that he was in, or his solo career, I highly recommend watching the interview he did with Rick Beato, because Rick would let him talk. Rick would ask a question, and also Rick Wakeman was a great host, somebody to interview, right? Because he talks a lot and he's funny and everything. So when Rick would ask him a question, Rick would go on for 20 minutes. And I think Rick, he didn't really ask that many questions because Rick Wakeman was talking a lot, and so it was an excellent interview. And Rick is really interested in what he's asking these musicians. It's not just Rick Wakeman. He's interviewed others too. And maybe someday it'd be cool if he could interview Paul McCartney. Now, speaking of Paul McCartney, this is just my personal opinion, of course. Some of you might like some of these people that for interviews. I always did like Howard Stern, back in the day when I used to listen to him on the radio. I thought he was funny and all that. But seeing him interview people like Paul McCartney, it gets really annoying really fast because, first of all, like Howard might ask Paul a question and Paul's answering it and he'll interrupt him. And sometimes you don't even get to hear the whole answer, right? And I'm not just talking about Paul McCartney, but other stars that Howard Stern has interviewed. So I think that Howard Stern, even though, like I said, I don't mind him, personality-wise, I think, I don't know if it's his ego or what, but he interrupts way too much and it's annoying. Conan O'Brien. I've seen Conan O'Brien interview Paul McCartney, and he's excellent. Plus, I think Conan O'Brien is hilarious, and Paul McCartney will play along with some comedy bits, like in this one. Conan visits Sir Paul McCartney in London, so I think Paul, really does like Conan too. Mike Douglas, remember? Some of you might remember if you're old like me. He had a talk show in the afternoon in the late 60s and 70s. And he would sometimes, have on these different rock bands. And he always treated them with respect, which I really admire with Mike Douglas. And one week, he had John and Yoko co-hosting. And I haven't seen this footage in a long time, but I'm sure, from what I remember, he was excellent, at interviewing people and showing also respect to them, even Yoko. Yeah. Okay. Jimmy Fallon, I think, is sometimes funny. I think he, some of the bits I've seen are funny to me, but I don't think he's a very good interviewer. And when he has Paul McCartney on his show, he just, I don't know, it's like he's sucking up to him a bit too much or whatever and going a little, he's overbearing with, showing how much he loves this guy or whatever. And it's just, and also I don't think he's a very good interviewer either. He'll interrupt when he does ask a question, and then sometimes you don't get the full answer. But Paul seems to like him, so. Now, Phil Aston, as I just mentioned, we did a video yesterday ranking all of the ELO albums, so please check out his channel today. He's posting it pretty soon. And he's interviewed Tony Banks from Genesis, Ian Anderson from, of course, Jethro Tull. And you could tell he's a little nervous at the start, especially with Ian Anderson. Who wouldn't be? I wouldn't want to interview Ian Anderson. But he did a really good job. And I just watched the full interview with Tony Banks yesterday. And I think, some of these, they're promoting whatever, an album or whatever. And sometimes they don't even want to be interviewed, but their manager or whatever is kind of pushing them to be interviewed. And I think Phil did a great job with Ian Anderson. And I think Ian was the way Ian is, though, right? But I think he was kind of impressed with Phil. And also Tony, I think, really enjoyed his interview. So way to go, Phil. Another YouTube channel I really like, Word in Your Ear. I just recently watched this. This was posted yesterday where they interview Moon Unit Zappa. And I do have her book, and maybe someday I'll have her, on my channel to interview. We'll see. But they're excellent at interviewing, letting the person talk. They also just recently interviewed Ron and Russell Mael and Daryl Hall. Yeah, sorry, it was just Russell Mael, not Ron, being interviewed by them, and it was excellent. They let them talk, which is good when you're being interviewed. Matt from Pop Goes the 60s, he also interviewed Moon Unit Zappa. He's always excellent when he interviews anybody. Very calm, puts the other person at ease, I think, and is interested in, like I said, the questions being asked. Now, the last one, and there's more, of course, I can't remember everyone, right? But maybe in the comment section below, you can let me know which are some interviewers that you find are really good and some that aren't so good. So this is Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. And his channel is called The Magnificent Others with Billy Corgan. And I do like, he asks really good questions. He seems interested in the other person, but he's very annoying. And even when I read the comments, like this one here, two of the members from Stone Temple Pilots. I haven't seen that interview, but it is so cool of the Deluo, I don't know how you pronounce that. Yeah, it says here, it is so cool for the brothers to sit and listen for 90 minutes while Billy interviewed himself. Interviewed himself. It was nice of these guys to have Billy on. Yeah, Robert and Dean are a lot like us in the audience, just watching Billy talk for an hour and a half. I liked that one point where the Delios got to talk uninterrupted for a full-on 45 seconds. Hell yeah. Billy asks a question and then answers it before they even have a chance. So, hopefully he improves, because I do like his channel and some of the people that he interviews, but it's, like I said, it's annoying when he'll ask a question and then he turns it to himself and he makes it about himself, sometimes, and it's annoying. And another one that I don't watch very often, and I did a reaction to this, and I did mispronounce his name. I said Bill Mayer when that's Bill Meyer. But I'm a big fan of John Fogerty, and I thought, that's great, almost a 2-hour interview with him, and it's horrible because he'll constantly be interrupted. And you also realize that, he acts like he's this big fan of John Fogerty and CCR, and then he doesn't even know some of the older songs. It's just very off-putting, And then he's drinking and smoking his funny stuff, and it's just, I'm just not a fan of his interview style. And like I said, there's probably more, but I just can't remember any at the moment, but I don't want to make this too long of a video. So I'm looking forward to some, comments below on who you consider some good interviewers, either talk show host or on YouTube, and some that you, for whatever reason, you don't like. So thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.